Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are wading into some complex territory, network security and data privacy standards and regulations. We'll focus quite a bit on Canada.
Yeah, it's a landscape that honestly can feel like alphabet soup sometimes.
Exactly. So our mission today is simple. Help you clearly see the difference between what's a recommended practice and what's actually a mandatory legal requirement.
That's the absolute starting point. You've got these two main buckets, standards and regulations.
Okay.
Standards, think ISO, think PCI DSS. They're mostly recommendations, often developed by industry groups. They're, best practices, generally voluntary.
Generally voluntary, but they can become mandatory, right? Like if a contract says you need it or specific law points to it.
Precisely. That's the key linkage.
So if they're often voluntary, why do we see companies pouring, huge resources into getting certified for things like ISO 2701? What's the driver there?
Well, it's because security isn't just about ticking compliance boxes anymore. It's really a competitive asset.
Yeah.
Getting certified is like a public badge. It shouts, we take this seriously, and that builds customer trust. It gives you a definite edge over competitors who haven't done it.
I definitely see that, especially like you said in finance or healthcare. If you want to handle their data, certain certifications are just table stakes. They won't even consider you otherwise.
Exactly. It's often a vendor requirement. And beyond just winning business, these standards are fundamental risk management tools.
How so?
They push organizations to implement proven controls before something bad happens. It helps mitigate those potentially crushing financial hits, not to mention the reputational damage from a breach. It's an investment, really.
An investment in avoiding disaster later makes sense. Trust is key. So let's dig into the big one for building that trust foundation, the ISO framework, specifically ISO 27001 and 27002.
Right, issued jointly by ISO and the IEC.
And which one gets you that certificate people hang on the wall?
That's ISO 2701. It's the management standard. It lays out the requirements for setting up, running, maintaining, and, crucially, continuously improving an information security management system, an ISMS.
Okay, an ISMS.
But here's the really critical thing to grasp about 27001. It's all about process. It doesn't tell you, you must buy firewall model X. It's not about specific tech controls.
So it's more about the overarching framework, making sure the management understands their responsibilities and risks.
Exactly. It forces the organization to ask and answer some pretty fundamental management questions.
Like what?
Questions like, have we actually identified all our legal, regulatory, and contractual obligations related to information security? Do we truly know which information and processes are critical and need protection? Does the organization even understand its own information systems properly?
It's forcing that high-level strategic view.
Yes. And by answering those, the organization then defines the necessary controls for its specific situation. That's why it works for any type of organization, big or small.
And getting certified isn't easy, I gather.
No, it's quite involved. You need a project plan, define the scope of your ISMS, do a formal risk assessment, figure out where your gaps are.
And then the audits.
Right, a two-stage audit. Stage one looks at your documentation. Have you got the processes written down?
Yeah.
Stage two checks if you're actually following those processes in your day-to-day business.
Okay, so if 27001 is the framework, the what? Where does 27002 fit in?
Good question. ISO 27002 is its sibling, the Code of Practice. It provides the detailed guidance, the how-to, for implementing the security controls listed in Annex A of 27001.
So that's where you find the more granular advice on things like firewalls or access control.
Precisely. It covers about 12 security domains, risk assessment, asset management, physical security, business continuity, all that good stuff. It gives you the implementation details.
But you can't get certified against 27002 itself, right?
Correct. Certification is only against the 27001 management framework. 27002 is the supporting guidance.
Got it. Okay, that clarifies the ISO picture. Now let's shift from that general framework to more specialized industry controls. SOC reports, Service Organization Control.
Yep, SOC reports.
These are defined by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, the AICPA. Why accountants? That seems finance-related, not pure security.
Well, it is related because it's all about assurance, particularly for financial reporting. SOC reports are designed for service organizations, think cloud providers, payroll processors, data centers, companies that handle critical functions or data for other companies.
Okay, so the service provider's clients need proof.
Exactly. The client company needs assurance that the provider's systems won't mess up their operations or, importantly, their financial statements.
Hmm.
And the client's auditors need that assurance too.
Ah, so it's an assurance mechanism flowing down the supply chain. Makes sense. What about the different types, SOC 1, 2, and 3?
Right. SOC1 focuses specifically on controls at the service organization that could impact a client's financial reporting. Payment processors are a classic example. SOC2 is probably the one most people think of for cloud and data center security. It's based on the AICPA's Trust Services criteria.
Trust services criteria. What are those?
They're categories used to evaluate the controls: security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. SOC2 reports detail how a service provider meets selected criteria.
So SOC 1 and SOC 2 sound like pretty detailed, heavy reports.
They are. They're attestation reports meant for the client. They're auditors, people who understand the details. They're generally confidential.
And SOC 3?
SOC3 is different. It's a much more general, high-level report based on the SOC2 examination, but without all the detailed testing results. It's designed for a wider audience, even the general public. Think of it as a marketing tool to show, yes, we've been audited against these security principles.
Okay, high-level standard, third-party assurance. But now let's talk about something that's definitely not voluntary if you're in the business. Credit cards. PCI DSS.
Ah, yes, the payment card industry data security standard. If you accept, process, store, or even just transmit data from major credit cards, PCI DSS is mandatory. Full stop.
Why so strict?
Simple reason. Cardholder data is incredibly easy for criminals to turn into cash. It's a prime target. So the standard exists to protect everyone involved, the card brands, the banks, the merchants, and ultimately the cardholders, from the fallout of a breach.
And unlike ISO 27701's focus on management process, PCI DSS is known for being very prescriptive, isn't it? It tells you exactly what tech controls to use.
It really does. It mandates specific things. Install and maintain firewalls, encrypt transmitted cardholder data, use and update anti-malware software, restrict access based on need to know. It gets very granular.
Give me an example of that granularity.
Okay, look at requirement 1.1.4 in version 4. It explicitly forbids any direct public access between the internet and any system component within what's called a cardholder data environment, or CDE.
The CDE. Let's pause on that. What exactly is the cardholder data environment, and why is defining it so important?
The CDE is basically any part of your IT system, servers, networks, applications, that stores, processes, or transmits cardholder data. Think payment gateways, point-of-sale systems, the databases holding card numbers.
Okay.
Defining its scope accurately is crucial because the strict PCI DSS rules only apply within the CDE. So organizations try very hard to limit the size of their CDE.
How do they do that?
Network segmentation is key. They try to isolate the CDE onto its own secure network segment, walled off from the rest of the corporate network.
Ah, so they draw a smaller box.
Exactly. By saying only this small, protected part of our network touches card data, they dramatically reduce the burden of applying all those stringent PCI controls everywhere. It makes compliance manageable.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, that's a perfect pivot point. We've covered industry frameworks, some voluntary, some contractually or industry mandated like PCI.
Right.
Now let's shift fully into mandatory law, specifically focusing on Canada. Get this wrong, and you're facing legal consequences.
Right. And in Canada, which laws apply really depends on a few factors. Are you a government entity or a private company? Where are you located? What kind of information we're talking about? Does the data cross provincial or national borders?
Lots of variables. Before we get into the specific acts, what kind of information are these laws actually trying to protect? What counts as personal information?
It's pretty broad. We're talking about things linked to an identifiable individual: race, origin, religion, age, marital status, medical history, education, employment history, financial details, DNA, identifying numbers like SIN. The list goes on.
But crucially, what's generally not covered, because that's a common point of confusion.
Yeah, good point. Your basic business contact information, name, title, work address, work phone, work email, that's typically not considered personal information under these laws when used for business communication.
Yep.
Same goes for truly anonymous data or information about a company itself, not an individual.
Okay, good distinction. Let's start with the government side then. The Federal Privacy Act.
Right. Key thing here. The Privacy Act applies only to federal government institutions. Think departments like the Canada Revenue Agency handling taxes, Service Canada dealing with pensions, CBSA for border security, It also covers federal crown corporations like Canada Post or VIA Rail.
And what does it do for individuals?
Fundamentally, it gives you, the individual, the right to access the personal information the federal government holds about you and the right to request corrections if it's inaccurate.
And it restricts how they collect it too, right?
Yes, very much so.
Oh.
They can only collect personal information if it's directly related to an operating program or activity of the institution. They can't just grab data for no reason. Administering pensions, collecting taxes, those are legitimate activities.
What about sharing that information?
Also tightly controlled. They generally can't disclose your information unless specific conditions are met. Maybe another federal law explicitly allows it, or a court orders it, or in some rare cases, if the public interest in disclosing it clearly outweighs the invasion of privacy.
Okay, that covers the federal government. What about the rest of the economy? The private sector?
That's where PIPEDA comes in, the Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act.
Right, PIPEDA.
This is the main federal privacy law for private sector organizations involved in commercial activities across Canada. It also applies directly to federally regulated businesses like banks, airlines, and telcos, regardless of provincial lines.
And what are the core principles of PIPEDA?
Consent is central. Generally, organizations need your informed consent to collect, use, or disclose your personal information.
Generally.
Well, there are exceptions, but consent is the default. And they can typically only use the information for the specific purpose they told you about when they collected it.
Yeah.
If they want to use it for something new, they usually need to get your consent again.
And they have to protect it.
Absolutely. They must protect the information with appropriate security safeguards, considering how sensitive the data is.
Now, PIPEDA has a significant quirk related to certain provinces, doesn't it? Alberta, BC, Quebec.
Yes, that's a critical point. PIPEDA generally does not apply to private sector organizations operating entirely within Alberta, British Columbia, or Quebec, concerning transactions within those provinces.
Why is that? Are those provinces just less concerned about privacy?
No, not at all. It's because those three provinces have passed their own private sector privacy laws that the federal government has officially deemed substantially similar to PIPEDA.
Jurisdictional harmony.
Exactly. So, a business operating only in Quebec follows Quebec's provincial law. The idea is to maintain a consistent, high standard of privacy protection across the country, respecting provincial jurisdiction where adequate laws exist.
That clears up a lot. Anyway, one more piece of major federal legislation, CASL, Canada's anti-spam legislation. This one feels a bit different.
It is. CASL isn't primarily about data storage privacy like PIPEDA. It's about regulating commercial electronic messages, CMs. Think emails, texts, social media messages sent for commercial purposes.
And its goal is
To protect Canadians from unwanted spam, yes, but also from related online threats like phishing and malware, often delivered via spam.
what does it require businesses to do?
Three main things for sending CMs. 1, get the recipient's consent either express or, in some cases, implied. 2, clearly identify yourself as the sender, including contact information like a mailing address and phone mail web contact. 3, provide a clear and working unsubscribe mechanism in every message.
So, consent, identification, unsubscribe.
That's the core for messages. But CASL also does something else important. It prohibits installing software on someone else's device in the course of commercial activity without their express consent.
So no sneaking spyware or adware onto someone's computer during a download.
Precisely. It targets that delivery mechanism for potentially harmful software. So, you see, the Canadian framework covers data handling with PIPEDA and the Privacy Act, and then the digital interactions with CASL.
Okay, we've covered standards, industry mandates like PCI, federal privacy laws like PIPEDA, and anti-spam laws like CASL. It feels like we've covered most bases, but there's one final layer, isn't there? The ultimate backstop.
Yes. Regardless of whether any specific regulation like PIPEDA applies, or whether you meet a standard like ISO, certain actions related to computer misuse are simply illegal under the Criminal Code of Canada.
We're moving beyond compliance issues and fines now into actual criminal offenses.
Absolutely. This isn't about regulatory penalties. It's about potential imprisonment. These are mandatory prohibitions that apply to everyone.
What kind of cyber-related acts does the criminal code specifically outlaw, and what are the penalties?
Well, for instance, knowingly intercepting a private communication wiretapping. Essentially, they can get you up to 5 years in prison.
Okay.
Fraudulently obtaining computer services or intercepting any function of a computer system without authorization carries a maximum penalty of up to 10 years.
10 years. And what about straightforward online fraud?
If you defraud someone of property, money, or valuable services worth more than $5,000 using deceit or falsehood, which often involves computers these days, that's punishable by up to 14 years.
14 years. These are serious consequences.
They are. And there's one more that really highlights the severity. Committing mischief in relation to computer data, that means willfully destroying or altering data, rendering it useless or obstructing its lawful use.
Like a ransomware attack.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
If that act causes actual danger to life, imagine disrupting critical hospital systems or air traffic control. The maximum penalty is imprisonment for life.
Life imprisonment. For a cybercrime, that really underscores that network security isn't just an IT issue or a compliance hassle.
It's fundamentally linked to public safety and core criminal law. It shows how seriously these actions are viewed when they cross that line.
So, wrapping all this up, the standards, the regulations, the criminal code, what's a big takeaway for an organization trying to navigate this?
I think the main message is that compliance and security overall, it's not a one-and-done project. You don't just get certified or implement a control and forget about it.
Because the landscape keeps changing.
Constantly. IT risks evolve, new threats emerge, regulations get updated. So it has to be a continuous business process. Understand the frameworks, integrate the necessary controls, constantly monitor for gaps, and fix them. It never really stops.
A continuous cycle of assessment and improvement.
Exactly. Which leads us, I think, to a really interesting final thought for you, our listeners, to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
We saw that standards like ISO 27001 emphasize high-level management systems and processes, understanding risk, ensuring accountability. Then you have regulations and standards like PCI DSS that are very prescriptive about specific technical controls. You must use a firewall. You must encrypt this data.
Right, the what versus the how, sort of. Given how incredibly fast technology changes and how quickly new threats appear, often much faster than governments can legislate or committees can update standards, which approach do you think is ultimately better for keeping your data secure in the long run? Is it the flexible, high-level management framework that adapts to context, or is it the detailed, prescriptive technical requirement that might become outdated quickly?
A management system versus specific technical rules. Which is better for the future? That's definitely something to think about.